Finally, after 80 years, I am doing a video that is not a reaction. What is up, people of the internet? My name is Freelancer Amber, and welcome to the first of many videos in which I will be pairing Pokemon with characters from different medias. Though it would depend if I've heard or seen them. And as you saw in the thumbnail, this will be a RWBY Pokemon pairing video. But I didn't do this alone. I had some help for this. So welcome to fellow RWBY and Pokemon fan, ThatKaitoDan. Did a rhyme.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan, the voice behind ThatKaitoDan, and thanks Amber for letting me be on board with this. For those of you who haven't heard of me or seen me before, I, like Amber, also do reactions for RWBY, as well as reviews, and I also do other Rooster Teeth shows too. Just like Amber, I am also a huge Pokemon fan. I have been ever since I picked up Pokemon Blue for Christmas as a kid. And since then, I've been trying to catch them all like everyone else, and I've been a fan of the anime and the games ever since. Plus, as you can expect as a Brit, I am over the moon with going to, at long last, a UK based region. Hashtag Scorebunny best starter.
Well, hashtag Grookey for best monkey boy. Anyway, to explain how we will be doing these pairings, these characters are still in their own worlds in a sense, but with Pokemon in them, and this is the team that we could see them having as trainers, based on their personality, their noteworthy features, or any quirk that is specific about them that would lend itself to similar traits a Pokemon would share. Now, I made a poll on Twitter some time ago if you guys want the pairings to be 1 to 3 or a full Pokemon team, and a majority of you guys want a full team. But me and Dan talked it over, and it would be easier to have 1 to 3 Pokemon as to not have repeat Pokemon and not make these videos way longer than they need to be.
Secondly, we won't pair characters with mythical, legendary, or ultra beast Pokemon, unless we absolutely have to. We also won't be using the Galar Pokemon because we've only just gotten their appearances so far and a few other details. We're not as experienced with them and the Sword and Shield games as we are other Pokemon, though maybe come November or later we will do a little bonus video covering some Galar Pokemon options and who they should have been paired with. Additionally, we will use fan art, fanfiction, or our thoughts into these videos, though it will mostly be our opinions. We'll also occasionally be using some Pokédex entries and showing them on screen as well as some of the moves they know to further point out why we chose that Pokemon for certain characters.
Lastly, as you saw at the title and thumbnail, this will be a 2-part video as we will be covering characters that have appeared by volume. For this, we'll be doing characters that have appeared in volumes 1 through 3 on my channel, and Dan will have part 2 on his channel that will cover characters that have appeared in volumes 4 through 6, the villains, as well as volume 3 characters that we couldn't fit in this part. And finally, this is 100% our own opinion, so if you have other thoughts, that's totally fine. So without further ado, in the words of our boy Memory, let's get started! Starting off, we have Team RWBY and the titular, which I totally did not Google the word, character herself, Ruby Rose, and the Pokemon we believe would go with her are Growlithe, Scyther, and Roserade. For Growlithe, we simply based him because her pet dog Zwei is best doggo and because of the fireball aspect from volume 2. Plus it makes sense for her to have a pet dog in this world too. For Scyther, it's because of the weapon RWBY uses in the series, and Scyther not only has sharp weapons, but is also just as fast as RWBY when she uses her semblance. Lastly, for Roserade, we gave her to RWBY because of her iconic rose petals and rose name. Simple enough.
Next up, it's everyone's favorite Ice Queen, Schnee, who we gave a shiny Glaceon, Primarina, and Samurott. Now you may be asking why we gave Weiss a shiny Glaceon. Well, as we'll explain with other characters, the shiny color scheme fits a lot better than the original color sometimes, as seen here with shiny Glaceon being white and blue, similar to Weiss's color scheme. As for why we gave her Glaceon in the first place, if you look at this graceful ice type, this too would make you think of Weiss and her own divine look and poise. Then for Primarina, you got a Pokemon known for its angelic singing, much like Weiss's beautiful vocals. Then to top things off, even though Samurott is mostly based on a samurai, his weaponry is similar to Weiss's Myrtanaster. And in Samurott's white entry in the Pokédex, it says, part of the armor on its anterior legs becomes a giant sword, which would make you think of her Armored Knight summon and his giant weapon.
Next up is my favorite member of Team RWBY, Blake Belladonna, and what we decided for her are Liepard, Shiny Greninja, and Zoroark. For Liepard, we obviously had to give her a cat Pokemon because of her faunest trait. As for why we picked Liepard, in several of its Pokédex entries, it talks about vanishing and swiftly attacking its enemies, much like Blake. Next is Shiny Greninja, and as we explained for Shiny Glaceon, the color scheme works out better with all the black variant, and both Greninja and Blake are masters of the Ninja Vanish, largely thanks to her semblance, which can also work into why we went for Zoroark. We picked it because it too can create multiple copies through its illusions. Also, doesn't its color scheme remind you of someone?
Lastly, for Team RWBY, we have my favorite of the girls, Yang Xiaolong, who has a shiny Arcanine, Emboar, and Dragonite. The yellow Arcanine is another tie-in to the family pet Zwei, but also it being an evolution of Growlithe, the Pokemon that RWBY has, we thought that would be cool to connect the two, to highlight their sibling connection. Whereas for Emboar, with his flaming hot fist of fury, he can really put the bake in bacon. Eh? Get it?
Boo! You stink!
Ah, come on. Both me and Yang love a good pun. Also, for why we didn't give her the obvious choice of a Blaziken, well, Blaziken more focuses on kicks, whereas Yang is all about punching things. And Emboar, thanks to its Blaze ability, can also grow stronger despite taking a lot of damage, like Yang's semblance. Finally, for Yang's final Pokemon, she has a Dragonite to tie in with her full name, meaning Little Sun Dragon.
Next up, we have the B team, Team Juniper, starting off with a lovable goofball, not you, Dan.
I'll take that as a compliment.
We, of course, mean Jean Arc. The first Pokemon we thought would go with Jean is Escavalier, because much like Vomit Boy, Escavalier has a very knight-like appearance with its armor design. The second Pokemon is Aegislash. Simple enough, really. You got a Sword and Shield Huntsman with a Sword and Shield Pokemon. And no, we're not talking about the Galar region. Finally, we have Lucario, the Aura Pokemon. While the Pokemon version of Aura is much different than RWBY's version of Aura, both these two can utilize their boundless pools of energy in battle, even though Lucario's Aura is more for offense compared to Jean's support semblance.
Then we move on to the next member of Team Juniper, the Boop Queen herself, the Breaker of Legs, Nora Valkyrie. Naturally, we have to give her an electric type Pokemon due to her many electric traits. So we decided to give her a Flaffy, most notably a shiny Flaffy, because of Nora's pink colors and a little bit of green on its tail representing Ren. It's the perfect mixture to signify Nora's close bond with her together partner. Also, in its many Pokédex entries, it says it stores electricity in its fleece, similar to Nora's ability to conduct electricity, since she's a walking talking lightning rod. And speaking of lightning rod, we gave Nora Togedemaru, as the chipper electric steel type has that as one of its notable abilities. And while Nora can conduct the electricity through just her body, she of course uses her trademark Magenhild hammer as another means of conducting and attacking. So we gave her a shiny Kamala, which can use its pink and white block of wood to attack with Wood Hammer, and also have the habit of breaking legs.
I still can't believe it's shiny, it's just its log! Anyway, following up with Nora is the much-loved Amazon athlete, Pyrrha Nikos. We started off with a similar sounding Pyroar, the female version specifically, which kinda has a similar hairstyle, but also because it ties in with Pyrrha's Greek background. When in ancient Greece, the gladiators would fight an assortment of animals, most notably lions. And on the topic of fighting, we looked to Pyrrha's weaponry for inspiration, and through her shield, we recruited Komodo, who also uses its shield-like scales as both an offense and defensive weapon. Then for her final Pokemon, we gave the potential Fall Maiden, the maiden-like Pokemon, Gardevoir, who, with its psychic abilities, can also represent Pyrrha's gifted control with her polarity semblance. And in some of her Pokédex entries, it is noted that Gardevoir would do anything to protect the life of its trainer, just like how Pyrrha made the ultimate sacrifice for the world, her friends, and of course, Jean. I'm not crying. You're crying.
I'm still crying. Last but by no means least, we have Lai Ren, whose mastery of the martial arts makes for great inspiration to give him Mind Shao, the martial arts Pokemon. And let's make it a shiny too, since the pink elements can tie back into Nora, and also the pink streak in his hair and pink eyes. Ren's also a speedy ninja, akin to Blake, but for him, we gave him Esselgor, who's got a very clear ninja motif going on. And to wrap this list up, let's give him the other notable evolution of the Ralts line with the bladed male warrior, Gallade, who can slash and dash very much like Ren and his Stormflowers.
Now we move on to the focus of the recent novel, After the Fall, Team Coffee. Starting with the leader of the second-year squad, the fashionista Coco Adele. Now naturally for a diva like her, we decided Sarina because of her flowery diva persona that also mixes feminine charm with mastery of well-placed kicks. Then we considered that Coco would be the highlight of Pokemon contests and performances, and one of the best options for a trainer to have for those kinds of events would be the equally beautiful Milotic. A Pokemon iconic for the hard work one has to put in to obtain with evolving from a Feebas after reaching max beauty. And with Coco being a second year, she would already have plenty of experience under her belt. And for her last Pokemon, we looked to Coco's real-life inspiration, Coco Chanel, the famous French fashion designer. In the world of Pokemon, France is represented by the Kalos region, even capturing its fashion and style elements, and none more so is that more obvious than with the pampered poodle Pokemon, Furfrou, which is notable for its many trims. However, we decided to go with one specific style, that being the Debutante trim that's also in its shiny form, as the black and cream colors fits closer to Coco's attire.
After Coco, we now move on to the now finally confirmed blind badass, Fox Alastair. Now while Amity Arena and After the Fall has confirmed and revealed a few more details about Mr. Alastair, he's one of the first examples where we don't have enough viable Pokemon to give them a full trio. So for Fox, since we already gave Gallade to Ren, we decided to use another Pokemon that fights with blades on its arms, much like the Vacuo native, Garchomp, the land-sharp Pokemon that roams his own desert plains with deadly force. As for his second pick, we thought since Jean already had Lucario, a Pokemon known for using its aura to sense his foes, we could instead give Fox a Railu, which has a big focus on using aura to communicate, just like Fox does with his telepathy as his main source of communication.
It's my turn now, and...
Oh no. I just had a short one, and this next one is my best bun. Ergo, I'm doing this one.
Okay. Go for it.
Sweet. So, anyway, now it's time for RWBY's resident rabbit girl, Velvet Scarlatina. And on the topic of rabbits, out of the many possible fluffy-tailed options we considered, we opted for Baneri. While its evolution Lopunny is the more combat-oriented Pokemon with an emphasis on kicks, much like Velvet, Baneri captures more of her sweet side. Combat-wise, we focused more on Velvet's ability to copy and utilize many of her friend's weapons via her camera and semblance. So for that, she has Smeargle, which can use its only move, Sketch, to permanently copy the opponent's last moves. Finally, we touched on Velvet's adorable shyness and her cute ears to give her a Clefable, as several Pokédex entries point out the fairy type is equally as timid in crowds and has some extreme hearing. There, now that I got to talk about my best girl, now it's your turn.
Gee, thanks for nothing. Now I've got another short one. But ironic as well considering the size of him. We, of course, mean the big muscle of Team Coffee, Yatsuhashi Daichi. Now, like Fox, we don't have enough fitting Pokemon to give him a full set even with his new After the Fall info. But he at least gets two that covers both his strength, composure, and his compassion. Leaning more on his combat side, thanks to his size and armor plating, the lad gets a Golisopod, the equally bulky and well-armored water bug type. He may even had a Wimpod at first, and being the gentle giant he is, he would have enough patience and kindness to raise it from wimpy to mighty. And on the note of wimpy to mighty, Machoke is his other Pokemon, as his incredible power comes with the need to restrain himself to avoid hurting others, be it in combat or just being a helpful hand, like Yatsu did with his training to control his dangerous memory-wiping semblance.
Now, unfortunately, we have to move on to everyone's favourite bunch of douche canoes, Team Cardinal. Starting off with King Douche Canoe, Cardin Winchester. First up to bat, we gave him a Granbull. Despite the fact that it's a fairy type, this bulldog Pokemon is anything but innocent. Much like its trainer, it likes to intimidate its foes, despite actually being quite cowardly when it's intimidated. Plus, you got a Grand Bull with a bully. And sadly, bullies are often rude, smug, and tend to have some lackeys, which is also something tied to the hoodlum Pokemon Scrafty, which is why we gave him to Cardin, who also has a rather brash and egotistical nature. And finally, inspired by his name being based on the red-feathered cardinals, he has a shiny Talonflame, which can also represent Cardin's fiery attitude and weapon.
Since the rest of Cardin's flunkies have few known details, we decided to look toward the connection they all share, that being they're all named after birds. So the rest of the team has one flying type Pokemon. Russell Thrush, with his distinct mohawk, gets a Fearow because of the similar hairstyle. Dove Bronzewing has the final evolution of the P-Dove line, a male on pheasant. And then to round off the douche canoes, Skylark gets a Swellow as, much like Russell, these two have similar slick back hair/feathers.
Now we move on to someone far more interesting, the man of many faces and mysteries, Professor Ozpin. An easy one to start off with, we gave him a shiny green Kling-Klang, given the gear motif in his office and emblem. After that, we traded his chess battle with Salem for a Pokemon battle with this chess master having a Bishop, the Pokemon named after the chess piece Bishop, which also leads and directs many pawns, or in this case, huntsmen and huntresses, into battle. Then finally, we're breaking our no legendary rule for one of these rare exceptions, as we want Ozpin's tragic and unending reincarnation curse to be represented by Ho-Oh, the Pokemon based on the Phoenix, which is notable for its own reincarnation ability.
Now we move on to his assistant, the current MIA strict professor, Glenda Goodwitch, who I hope will be returning in a future volume, or at least in Chibi. If she appeared again, but in the Pokemon world, we pictured her having my favorite evolution, Espeon, who, in its Pokédex entries, stated that it's extremely loyal, much like Glenda is to Ozpin. And Espeon uses its precognitive powers to protect its trainer from harm, similar to how Glenda protects Vale and her students. Glenda's quite stern-faced and no-nonsense when it comes to teaching, so we thought that attitude mixes well with Gothitelle, a shiny one at that, as both these two have quite the stern glare that could freeze you as much as their psychic powers. And of course, Glenda is very much a witch, so it only seems fitting her team rounds off with a shiny Delphox, who, with a flick of her stick, can use all manner of psychic moves, just like Glenda and her crop.
After Glenda, we move on to the sharp wit and sharpish speed of Professor
Doctor!
Yeah, right. Dr. Bartholomew Oobleck. Like I said, Dr. Oobleck is quite the speed demon, probably because of all that coffee he drinks. So all of his Pokemon are some of the fastest in the Pokemon world. The first being the equally spiky-haired Jolteon, in this case a shiny one. And the next being the flaming unicorn Rapidash, which can also represent Oobleck's odd combination of a thermostat and a flamethrower. There's more to Oobleck though than his speed. He's a very in-tune person with past events as a history teacher, so we decided he should have one of the many fossil Pokemon in the world, and still keeping in with this whole speed factor, how about the fastest fossil Pokemon, Aerodactyl?
Of course, we move on to Oobleck's compatriot, the jovial hunter, the Professor Peter Port. Perhaps if he does man up with Port in the Pokemon world, he could trade his blunderbuss axe for the axe-based dragon type Haxorus, with its sharp-bladed head. Since as well he captured a Borbotux in the Ruby world, how about in the Pokemon world he captures a similar looking Mamoswine? Finally, like any good hunter, they need a good hunting companion, so it would seem fit to pair Port with Stoutland, a Pokemon with terrier-like traits, similar to many of our world's hunting dogs. Plus, look at that sweet facial hair. Respect the moustache.
And to round off the Ozluminati, we have the stalwart of the Atlas military, General James Ironwood. Obviously, one of the General's distinct features is his half-metallic side, so perhaps in the Pokemon world, one of his key partners is a shiny Metagross, the Pokemon most known for its own metallic limbs. His injuries doesn't stop James from being a skilled protector of Atlas and the world though, so in keeping with that, we think an Aggron is a perfect representation of Ironwood's iron will and steely defenses, and as the general of the Atlas's prized cybernetic soldiers and mechs, we think James's trio should get a Pokemon harkening back to the iconic Atlesian Paladin, that being the automaton Pokemon Golurk, a shiny one to fit the traditional white and silver color scheme of the Frozen Kingdom.
Now we move on from Ozpin's fellow teaching staff to one of his most trusted confidants, Crow Bronwyn. Starting off with the obvious, we gave Crow Crow. We paired them not just because of the name, but also because of Crow's unique transformation of turning into his namesake. Next is another Pokemon that's also rather obvious, the disaster Pokemon Absol. Since, much like Crow, Absol is also seen as a walking bad luck charm. Lastly, to represent Crow's weapon, Harbinger, we thought a massive hunk of steel that could lean into Crow having a Skarmory, especially with its curved wings mirroring the weapon's Scythe mode.
Since we talked about Ruby's uncle, it's only fair then to go from one member of Team Stark to the other, her father, Taiyang Xiaolong. For better or worse, one of Tai's biggest elements that affects his life is his family. And as such a compassionate parent, we thought it would be nice for him to have a Kangaskhan, the parent Pokemon, that despite being 100% female, somehow has a kid.
Why is there not a male Kangaskhan to have some kid with?
Don't mind Amber, this is a bit of a sore spot for her. While she's currently raging, let's next highlight us giving a Mightyena to Tai. Think of it like the adult version of Zwei, with the adorable Corgi currently being Tai's source of comfort. Finally, we rounded out Tai's team with a dragon-themed Pokemon, and since he is the father of the Spitfire Yang, we thought Tai having a Charizard would be a good way to tie these two dragon-named characters together.
Okay, I think I had my moment. Now I can focus on talking about our favorite monkey boy, Sun Wukong. Starting with the Pokemon representing Sun's cheeky and free-spirited personality, Aipom, who we've seen, much like Sun with his martial arts, is good with his hands, including his hand tail. But when Sun gets serious, this cheeky monkey needs some firepower. Thus, he also has Infernape, who, like Sun, is also based from Journey to the West's Monkey King. And since he is named Sun, how about the Pokemon that is literally based on the sun, Solrock?
Switching attention now to a different member of Team Hot and Useless, next up it's Neptune Facilier, who, despite being ironically afraid of water, should definitely have a water-type Pokemon that is also based on King Neptune, the Trident-adorned Empoleon. He is also a bit of a nerd, sorry, intellectual, and he is pretty handy with kinetic energy weaponry. So to represent this Trident, gun weapon of his, we have the combo of water and electricity in his second Pokemon, Lantern. And finally, since Neptune thinks of himself as a rather cool customer, he should also get a Squirtle, mostly because of the cool shades from the Squirtle squad.
Now forget about him, let's move on to someone who's actually cool. Sorry Neptune, we love you, really. That being the kindest robot girl that ever lived, Penny Polendina. For Penny's first Pokemon, we're breaking our no mythical or legendary pairing rule again, as this entry is just too fitting. That being the artificial Pokemon, Magearna. I mean, look at it! It's basically a robot girl in the Pokemon world! Penny is special though, as the first synthetic being to produce aura, or in other words, a soul. And we thought a good Pokemon to represent that would be a Rotom, the living plasma Pokemon that can bring technology to life. And despite being incredibly adorable, she is technically a weapon in disguise, so perhaps when it's time for her to be combat ready, she could call on Type Null, another Pokemon that has incredible power bottled up.
Since we just talked about a character from Atlas, I'll take over now to talk about the frosty female specialist, Winter Schnee. Though her little sister gets called Ice Queen the most, Miss Schnee herself is quite the chilling individual, so perhaps she would have a Frost Lass, who, much like its trainer, harkens to the Japanese legend of the Yuki Onna, or Snow Woman. When it's time to get down to business though, Winter is quite the powerhouse, mixing strength with grace, with either her summons, like the Snowbird she used against Crow, which can be represented by Winter having a Swanna, or through her mastery of the Schnee hereditary semblance, the Glyphs, which we use as inspiration for her final Pokemon, the similar shaped snowflake Pokemon, Cryogonal.
And to close off part 1 of this collaboration, we're finishing with the most important character in all of RWBY, the one and only Shopkeep, who, since he's a kingpin of Vale's many businesses, he would need a partner to help him make deliveries across all of Remnant. And so, he gets the delivery Pokemon, Delibird. How else do you think he can sustain all those businesses? None unless he's like the Nurse Joy's or Officer Jenny's. Or is he?
Dun dun dun!
Thank you guys so much for watching part 1 of the RWBY Pokemon pairing videos. I understand that these entries are short and the reasons for our choices are simplistic and not full of detail, but Dan and I still had a lot of fun coming up with these ideas on what Pokemon will go with each character. So make sure you tune in to part 2 of the collabs over at Dan's channel, where, like we said in the beginning, we will cover characters that have appeared in volumes 4 through 6, a few more volume 3 faces, as well as the villains. Link to that video will be in the description below or in the iCard above.
So what do you think about our suggestions on these pairings? Do you agree with our choices? Are there Pokemon that you think are better suited to them? And if they are, what would they be and why? And what do you think their full team would be if we gave them the full 6? Let us know in the comments down below.
If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe and hit the bell button to get notified on the next uploads. And don't forget to check out Dan's channel as he does great reviews, theories, and reactions. Link to his channel will be in the description below as well. So remember to stay awesome, be nice to animals, don't be dicks, keep moving forward, and we'll see you all in the next video!